we wanted to pull in a Teen Titans Aqualad expert. Not export. He could be an export.
Well, he exports the characters right to our homes.
He exports the expertise.
There you go.
I think. All right. So who better than the current writer of Teen Titans? He's also the current writer of Green Arrow, which is also excellent. So please welcome to the podcast, writer Benjamin Percy. Ben, thank you for joining us on Geek History Lesson.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
My first question to you is, what is it like to actually write the Teen Titans for DC Comics?
It feels like an incredible privilege that I'm the custodians of these storied characters. And I have to admit that as much fun as I'm having, I almost have the anticipation of getting kicked out the door after every issue because it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm getting away with something.
Nice. Now, you recently put Aqualad onto this team. What made you decide to put Aqualad in the book?
I knew from the very beginning that we would put Aqualad in the series. And when I say the beginning, I mean 2 Januaries ago, when the discussions about Rebirth began. And that's when I flew out to Burbank and I went into that room with Jeff Johns, and basically he wouldn't let me out of the room until we had figured everything out about Green Arrow, about Teen Titans. And there's that one wall in there that's all whiteboard, and there's that other wall that's all windows. And, you can sort of watch the sun arc across the sky and sink towards the horizon as you talk and you talk and you talk. So I knew that Aqualad would be part of the series from the very beginning. I wanted to be part of the series from the very beginning, but we had to give him his due. He's such an interesting character that we didn't want to sort of crowd things up in the first arc. So that's why he didn't show up until issue 6, to really give him a platform for a highlighted platform to really explore this character. And, there's a number of reasons that sort of inform why he's in the series. One, just logistically, think about the fact that they're on this island in San Francisco Bay, and it makes sense to have an aquatic hero on their side. Also, the Teen Titans view themselves as tomorrow's Justice League. 70% of the world is water, so they better be able to defend above and below. And also, he just has such a rich history, and I find him such a fascinating character. I'd say that I'm most influenced by the Jeff Johns run. Mm-hmm. If you look at Jackson Hyde's representation and, The Brightest Day, Blackest Night, and if you look at the Young Justice TV series, animated series, I've been a real fan of that for a long time and how they represent KHaldar. So
now, one of my patrons over at patreon.com/Jawiin, he wanted to ask you, Sean Craven, what do you think makes Aqualad a vital member of the team, both as a person and as a superhero?
Well, he fits right in with this gang of misfits, right? Because he has a troubled history. If you think about characters like Damian, or if you think about characters like Kid Flash, they're struggling with their legacy. Damian has the blood of Ra's al Ghul running through him, but he's also a divided hero. He's, the son of Batman. Here you have Kid Flash, who comes to understand that his father is Reverse Flash, and, that haunts him. And you have Raven as well, who's, struggling, with her demonic biology. And so, a character like Aqualad, who is the son of Black Manta, he partners these conflicted characters so well. And especially if you think about the Teen Titans as, they're characters who don't quite know who they are yet. They're in that in-between time. They're struggling to discover what their future might be, what kind of person they might be, what kind of hero they might be. So I love how embryonic he is. And I love, too, that he belongs to underrepresented groups, that he is a black hero, he is a gay hero, and it's important that everybody sees themselves represented in the heroes of the DCU. And as for just him being a superhero, he's got lots of badass powers, and we haven't even revealed all of them all yet. So, there might be some electric eel shock coming down the pipeline. You'll just have to wait and see.
I liked your point where you said that you're building the Teen Titans as sort of a team of broken kids. Was that also originally in your original pitch, that the idea that all these kids are having problems with their legacies?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's how I approached the series from the very beginning. That these are characters who are on the cusp of coming to understand who they might be as people and as heroes. And, that's what makes them interesting to me, that they have found a family in each other, that they have found friendship, community in each other where they might be ostracized or alienated otherwise, that their powers are, not to get too X-Men-ish, but, sort of freakish and alienating. And that's what every teen feels like. And this is just an exaggerated version of that. When it comes to the more iconic characters like Superman and Wonder Woman, like they're obviously fantastic to read about. But I love the fissures that you find in characters like the Teen Titans, the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities. It just makes them so much more three-dimensional, so much more relatable.
Now, Ben, at the time of this podcast, the second part of Blood of the Manta will be dropping. Can you tell us a little bit about that storyline in case any of our listeners haven't been catching up?
Yeah, we're going to be diving into the secret lives of Aqualad's parents. So we're going to be delving into Black Manta's history, his connection to Lucia Hyde, and how they came together, how Jackson Hyde was conceived. We're going to get some Zebellian intrigue, some of the treasure hunting history that informs Aqualad's origins. And, I can't give away too much, but let's just say that there is an artifact from the past that is bound together with the necklace, the shell necklace that Jackson wears. And an adventure is about to swing into view that I think a lot of people will find surprising. And it's an adventure that, will be told partially here, but it opens up so many possibilities for the future of this character.
The way you describe it, it kind of sounds like it might be Jackson Hyde's year zero.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I did with Roy Harper in Green Arrow, and that's the way I'm approaching Jackson in this. Is that obviously there are all these origin stories for DC characters, but and sometimes people, when they're reading Rebirth, they're sort of like struggling with how this fits together. Like, okay, I have this version of the character in my head. How does it align with what's going on in Rebirth? And we're sort of taking, I don't want to speak for all the different creators, but we're sort of taking the best of hits from the past, and then uniting them with their own vision, so that this is, in my mind, and I hope readers are digging what I'm doing, but this is, in my mind, like the best possible version of Aqualad, and I'm drawing from the DC animated universe as well as the comics when I say that.
How much does Young Justice inform your writing of Jackson? I am very curious about that, because you talked about making this the nice melting pot of Aqualad. But again, as you brought up, Young Justice nailed an amazing version of this character. And does that kind of loom over you, or are you just like, no, I'm going to use the best pieces of that?
It looms over me in a way because it's a high standard, and I want to live up to that. But the Jackson that you see in the version of Aqualad that you see in Young Justice is a lot farther ahead, in his journey than this version of Jackson Hyde. So we're sort of going back in time more so, and he there are some differences, but he has so much to discover about himself and so much to discover about his powers in the meantime before he sort of catches up with that Young Justice version of himself.
Now, what member of the Teen Titans does Jackson like the most? And which one does he dislike the most? I figure, as the writer of Teen Titans, you're the one that could answer this question the best.
I think that the person that he likes the most, maybe despises the most, might be the same one. In that Damian has taken a real interest in Jackson. Mm-hmm. And part of that is subtextual, right? Damian feels as though, he would never admit this to himself, but Damian feels as though he has failed the team, like that he hasn't stepped up as a leader. And Kid Flash is the main reason for that. The Kid Flash being swept up into the time stream, Kid Flash being, sort of corralled by Deathstroke and recruited by Deathstroke. So he is taking out a lot of his frustration on Jackson and trying to make him into the best possible recruit for this team. So Jackson both resents this and, is very grateful for it because he came to the Teen Titans sort of like as a walk-on on a varsity team. He's like, I want to be part of this. So there's that complication that is going to be further complicated by, you can probably, I feel like I'm being maybe a little too spoilery here, but you can probably anticipate that there's a power shift coming, right? Okay. You've got Damian taking over the Teen Titans and not doing the best job of it. His relationship with Starfire is a little bit, it's not an exact parallel, but it's a little bit like Wolverine and Jean Grey in the X-Men. And Starfire is, not only the most experienced, not only the oldest member of the team, but she's also, the warmest. And would make a much better leader than Damian. So there's going to be a kind of, let's say, coup awaiting the future of the Teen Titans. And Starfire is really going to be there for Jackson.
Oh, I look forward to reading that. Yeah, it is there if you're looking for it, but especially the idea that Damian is the youngest member of this team, and he probably shouldn't be leading this team, in all honesty.
No, he's a fascinating character. I love Damian. But, it's all, everybody loves to hate Damian as well. He's a really troubled guy, and he's a hero, but he also has these villainous notes to him. And yes, he is incredibly inexperienced. He's also totally out of touch with his emotions. And that's why he's been so fascinating to have in this mix. I'm telling a long story here. I'm telling a kind of novelistic story where you have Damian cementing the team, saving everybody's lives, and they're grateful to him for that, but they're also resentful because he's so bullying, so tyrannical in his approach. So there has to be a kind of negotiation. There has to be a kind of peace summit that awaits them in the future where the dynamics of the team will shift. And, that's the fun thing about writing a series over many issues, is that, the status quo, if you're doing it right, the status quo is always shifting.
Now, going back to Aqualad a little bit, is there a hero in the DC universe that you think would be an awesome team up for Jackson in the DC universe?
Well, you'll see in the next few issues that we're building off of a thread in the Lazarus contract when the Teen Titans and the Titans came together for the first time in the Rebirth era. And, Garth reached out later on in that crossover and said, if you need to be in touch with me, please do. He's asking questions of Jackson. He's wondering where he is. And Jackson is saying that, I don't really know. I don't really know who I am. That's one of the reasons that I'm here. So Tempest is extending a hand, and he is going to be to play a role in Blood of the Manta and play a role beyond this. So I see them as aligned. And right now, if you're following Aquaman, that things are spiraling out of control there. So Aquaman will remain sort of sidelined, sort of an offstage character, which will just sort of build up the anticipation of his eventual introduction to Jackson.
Nice. Now, my final question comes from another one of my patrons. Hunter Romans asks, what is the future of Aqualad going to be? And you can feel to be as vague or as specific as you like.
This story, this rise of Aqualad and Blood of the Manta story are, as you said, the equivalent of a kind of year one approach. From here on out, we're going to just explore this character further emotionally, but also come to understand better his powers and how he might play a critical role in the struggle over the oceans, in that he has this magical origin that comes out of Zebel. And, I can't say too much for risk of severe spoilers, but when it comes to the battle over what lies beneath, he's a key component.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Can you please tell our listeners where they can find you online and some of the books they want to pick up if they would like to check out some of your work?
Yeah. I mean, you can find me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, cracking bad jokes and posting pictures of my puppy Chewbacca. But you can otherwise, check out maybe some of my novels. The latest one is The Darknet, and it drops this August. So I'll see you online or see you in the stacks. Also
to our listeners as well, Blood of the Manta Part 2 comes out the same week as this podcast, so you'd make sure you want to check out that. Teen Titans is an awesome book. It's one of my favorites, DC Rebirth, so you definitely want to check it out. Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.